Good afternoon. My name is Iris Baca. I am a student at GCU. I am currently enrolled in the program of Masters in Elementary Education. And today we're going to be discussing the role language, culture, and socioeconomic status plays in child development. We're going to begin by talking about the unique aspects of elementary students' language development. Students who are exposed to more than one language in early childhood develop better communication skills and cognitive adaptability. Children develop stronger problem-solving skills, memory retention, and critical thinking skills as they learn the language. So, of course, these skills are going to accompany them all through the grade levels and into adulthood, which is very beneficial. Also, the human brain is most receptive to language learning during early childhood. That means from birth all the way to the age of 6. So that period is definitely critical when it comes to learning a language. Language learning is also influenced by social interaction and collaboration with peers. What does that mean? That means that through social interactions with parents, siblings, caretakers, at school or at daycare, that's what's really going to help those kids develop their vocabulary, start a conversation, maintain a conversation, collaboration with peers. That's how they really get those communication skills going and learn to speak for themselves. So, language is a cultural factor that affects the development and learning of children. I know it sounds contradictory, but for example, a student who does not speak English is not going to understand the instructions at school, the topic information, the dynamic, the examples. So that is going to hinder their learning. And unfortunately, it also affects their confidence and their willingness to learn because they feel like they don't understand the language. They feel isolated and they feel like no matter what, they're going to feel discouraged. The same thing can be said about adolescence. So let's remember that the early teenage years is when we really begin to care about what other people think of us. We are more socially driven. So when a student doesn't speak English during those years, that hinders their participation and their social interactions. So they're not going to be willing to participate in class, even if they know the answer, the discussions, the group projects. They're not going to be willing to get out of their box and interact with students other than um, their group who speaks their language. So now we're going to shift to socioeconomic status. So socioeconomic status is associated with academic performance. Students from higher socioeconomic status are provided with financial support and learning resources at home. So what does that mean? They have the means to, let's say, go to science camp or go to a trip to the library, a trip to the museum. They can have access to books at home, technology, or maybe even a tutor during the summer. So higher economic status students score higher than their counterparts. So that extra resource really shows. In order to help students with low socioeconomic status, we can provide a highly structured classroom environment and routines. So how does that help? Let's remember that students with low socioeconomic status usually go through poverty. So they're at home and they're stressing about, having a roof over their head, having enough food. They don't see their parents that much because the parents are working. So that produces stress. So when a student goes to class and they know exactly what's going to happen. There's predictability. They know the routines. They know exactly where to find resources, where to find tools. They know exactly what's next. That reduces the stress that they have, and they can actually focus on their task. They can be more engaged in the lesson. When a classroom has students who are English language learners, or different socioeconomic status or culture, the instructional dynamic changes. Why is that? Well, because teachers must adapt to students' needs, just like they do with all the other students, but this one requires, a little extra. For instance, they have to incorporate multiculturalism to their lessons. They can provide examples or explanations of a topic while incorporating um, diversity. They need to foster inclusivity and tolerance in the classroom. To help English language learners, teachers have to scaffold and plan to include visuals and tools for the students. So this is a little extra from the teacher. They have to provide the visuals. They have to see what kind of differentiation activity they can use for that student. And also, for example, when reading a math problem, right, or when providing a math problem for the students, instead of saying something like, John is baking cookies for the school festival, we can say something like, Salim is baking baklava for the school festival. Little things like that is what helps normalize diversity in the classroom. So, some of the ways we support diversity is by modeling respect, empathy, and inclusion. So, that's a great way to reduce bias, as well as we can study other cultures, as discussed earlier. We can have discussions, we can watch documentaries and storytelling, even if it's from the students themselves. If there's a student who's member of a minority who wants to share its story, that would be perfect because it exposes the rest of the class to different worldviews. Teachers can keep their bias in check by practicing self reflection, which aligns with the InTask Standard 9. So, that is not only a great resource for teachers to self reflect and keep their bias in check, it's also an expectation. Another way is we can embrace different languages and cultures as something normal instead of something that we have to accommodate. We can create routines that celebrate diversity, like we can greet each other in the morning in different languages, which I think it's an awesome resource because in the morning, maybe one week is French, bonjour, right? The kids get to experience that, and I think it would be a fun activity for them. We can also, every week or every month, we can have, we can study a different culture. Maybe like a brief review during social studies. I know lately, for example, the Korean culture has been very popular in schools, at least in the school where I work at. It's very popular. So we can start with more than the music, right? We can go to the language. We can talk about their food. What is the meaning behind their traditional wardrobes, right? So that is one thing that we can do to incorporate and learn about different cultures. Last but not least, there are resources for teachers who want to support students from different cultures or socioeconomic status. There's the CASEL, CASEL, which stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So this one focuses on social emotional learning and culturally responsive practices. Another one is UNESCO. This one is a global guidance on cultural inclusion and equity in education. So that's it for me. I really hope that these resources and this information have been helpful to you. Thank you for listening to my presentation.